Hello and welcome to the Infield Fly Guys podcast. For today's episode, we're going to be talking about the NL and AL Central. We're going to be going over the 2024 standings. We're going to talk about the key pieces in and out, and we're going to finish up with our standings prediction. Together, I'm here with Robert. How are you doing, Robert?
I'm doing good today. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So, looking at the 2024 American League Central, if we can remember, they actually had three teams make it into the playoffs, starting with the Guardians that finished off 92 and 69, the Royals 86 and 76, the Tigers also 86 and 76, Twins 82 and 80, White Sox 41 and 121. Honestly, more of a competitive division than we probably would have thought to begin the year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And frankly, I don't think you look at the White Sox. I don't think they can get much worse, and we'll touch base on that in a minute. Otherwise, I think we're going to be in the same boat here with a very competitive division, especially with those four teams, and specifically those top three. But we'll get to
Well,
that in just a bit.
can you remind me on the team, the key pieces in and out for the AL Central?
Yeah, yeah. So we'll start here with the Guardians. They're probably the biggest acquisitions there. Where you had catcher Austin Hedges, who was re-signed, and Shane Bieber was also re-signed. But you would then bring on Carlos Santana, who was a big piece there, and Jacob Junis. They're probably their biggest losses there. I mean, they lost Matthew Boyd and Alex Cobb, and then also Josh Naylor. So I think they'll still be a pretty solid team despite that. But
The Guardians, if there's something that can be said about them, is they still find ways to win. They're they're
that's
they're
true.
they're kind of like the Rays or the Brewers in that way. I think more Brewers than Rays. Rays literally
Yep,
will
I would
have
agree.
no names and make it into the playoffs, where Cleveland still has Jose Ramirez, kind of sleeper guys like that. They still have a Shane Bieber, um, but they get the most out of their guys.
That's fair. Yeah, very true. Very true. Next here we got the Kansas City Royals, who then they brought on in a trade with the Reds. They brought in Jonathan India and Brady, and they lost Brady Singer in that trade. Um, and they also brought in Michael Lorenzen, and there another couple big pieces they lost there were Adam Frazier, Tommy Pham, and Paul DeJong. So Royals, they're another one of those teams you kind of described there. I mean, they will find ways to win. Very much a small ball team, kind of have to be in that ballpark. Even going back to 2015 when they won the World Series, they won that playing small ball. I mean, it's the way they're built, the way they play, and I mean they could definitely be dominant in that division. So
I feel like to begin 2024, they were kind of one of those sneaky picks that I mean, the AL Central almost every year is wide open, um, and the Royals were one of those teams. Like, but they got Bobby Witt, they still have Salvi, stuff like that, um,
mhm.
and they could make a run. Definitely a wild card spot. But this next team, the Tigers, were definitely not supposed to be where they ended up.
They were busy in the offseason. I mean, they signed Jack Flaherty to a 2-year deal, which is huge. Gleyber Torres, Alex Cobb, those are three big pieces right there. And they even brought in Andrew Chafin to help with the back end of that bullpen and a minor league deal. And not really many subtractions. I mean, Alex Fado, that's really all I see here. Um, and I mean, I never call myself a Tigers fan, but I definitely would say that big fan of their history, of that squad, and that I love that ballpark. Um, Big Ty Cobb fan, so different guy than Alex Cobb, obviously. um, but just that they should be fun. They should have a lot of fun in Detroit watching them this year.
For sure. Then we go on to the Twins, which to begin the year, I feel like to begin the year last year, they were definitely, I feel, the favorites to win the division. They felt like they had the most complete team. Maybe not the most super, the highest ceiling as far as like superstar players, although some players did break out. but they just kind of floundered and they didn't really live up to their expectations.
Yeah, I mean, I think they kind of relied a lot on, still kind of rely a lot on Byron Buxton and Carlos Correa, who just didn't have the year he was supposed to last year, if I remember correctly. Kind of underperformed. Kind of has since he became a Twin. Kind of not what they fully expected out of him bringing him in, even though he has been beneficial, but not to the degree I think they wanted him to be. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but
Oh, for sure. I mean, there was all that stuff with the injuries. He opts out. He ends up after basically
that's true.
signing with the Giants and the Mets. Basically, he was at the press conference for the Giants and they called it off, which is crazy to
Yep.
think about. And then
Hmm.
Mets took him on, and then all of a sudden that didn't come through, and all of a sudden he's a Twin again.
Yep.
Um,
And I, unfortunately for the Twins, I just don't think they're going to have the same year going in as they've had the last few seasons. I think they will get to it in a bit, but I think they will finish under 500, especially in that division. But I mean, acquiring Harrison Bader and Ty France are those two good pieces, especially in my opinion, Ty France. And then losing Kyle Farmer, Max Kepler, and Carlos Santana are definitely three pieces that you. I mean, if you're a fan of that team, you kind of wish they would have kept held on to for a bit.
for sure. And then finishing up with our friends across town, the White Sox. Not really much
And
to write, not really much to say about them. Write home about. Uh,
I mean, they were busy, but they weren't really busy in getting any big names. They signed a lot of 1 year deals. Martin Perez, Austin Slater, Mike Tachman, local kid who he always seems to put the bat on the wall. Definitely fun to
Palatine,
watch on the north side, and glad to see that he is still staying local here. So
yeah, Palatine Pounder.
Palatine Pounder, at least that's what the ladies called him. Um,
And then you still have Michael
Bryce
A.
Wilson,
Taylor.
Josh
Yeah,
Rojas, Michael A. Taylor, and
right.
Tyler Gilbert were all good pieces to add there.
Yeah. I mean, we'll go we'll come back with them with our predictions at the end, but yeah, I don't see them being much better this year.
I think they'll win 50 games.
All right. Well, we'll go from here. We'll go into the NL Central standings from last year. Uh, Brewers won the division 93 and 69. Cardinals and Cubs tied at 83 and 79 each. Then you have a little bit of a drop off with the Reds at 77 85 and the Pirates just a game behind them at 76 and 86. Key pieces in and out.
All right, yes. Starting off with Milwaukee there. Um, their biggest acquisition was probably going to be Nestor Cortez. Um, I mean, that was in a trade with the Yankees where they shipped the reliever Devin Williams. Some people think that was a trade that favored the Yankees quite a bit. What are your thoughts on that trade before I dig a little deeper into this?
I feel like now I feel like the Yankees could use a Nestor Cortez because of the situation that they're in with Luis Gill and Garrett Cole. I
Hmm.
mean, it's just it's depth, right? There's you can never have too much pitching, especially just guys that are gonna eat innings.
Hmm.
Nestor Cortez, you could probably write him down for close to a 4 ERA, maybe a 3.8, and he's gonna pitch. Probably gonna win as many games as you lose, but like he's there. And the Yankees needed a lockdown guy with Devin Williams, as Clay Holmes didn't work out, and now he's the opening day starter with the New York Mets. So that worked out for them. Brewers I mean, they love their depth pieces, and they love a guy. Nestor Cortez is just like the perfect Brewer, you know. And probably at
They
the end of
love
the
their
year,
pitching too.
yeah,
So
you're gonna look up at the end of the year, and I think both teams will be happy. So definitely
okay.
win-win. What do you think?
Well, then I think personally, I think the Brewers are really going to miss Devin Williams in the back end of that pen. I think it could cost them some games, but we can go down that road when we discuss the standings. But I think the Yankees definitely got the better end of the deal on that, in my opinion. But I mean, I guess now that's hindsight is 2020 because I would agree with your point though that when it comes to the depth of the pitching staff, they probably could use a guy like Nestor now. So it's really hard to say.
Right. And I mean, sneaky pickup at the end, Jose Quintana. Why am I blanking? Why can't I pronounce these names? Jose Quintana, who was sneaky good in the playoffs, like starting games for the Mets, shoving,
Yep.
right?
Oh yeah,
Uh, I
it's kind of interesting. You're struggling saying Jose's name since that is your name.
That's my name. I don't know why I can't say it. Uh, and I feel like honestly for the Brewers, it's the subtractions, right? It's the Willie Adames, it's
Mhm.
the Devin Williams, even Frankie Montas.
Yep. Yeah, I think they're going to miss Willie Adames a lot. When it came to the postseason, when they were struggling against the Mets, I feel like between Adames and Chiriot, they were the guys that kind of held the team together, kind of were to get that team rallied to get them to come back, especially in that final game that they ended up ultimately losing on that Pete Alonso bomb. So I think they're really going to miss Adames. But yeah, losing Montes and Gary Sanchez are also another piece that he's not your everyday guy, but he's definitely a guy off the bench that can definitely be beneficial from time to time.
So now we have the Cardinals free agents, Matt
Talk
Carpenter.
about doing nothing. Talk about doing nothing. I mean, this is one that they hired or they rather brought on Phil Matten. I mean, and then there's subtractions. I mean, Goldschmidt's a big one. He obviously doesn't have the production he did years ago. And then Andrew Kittredge was their other subtraction. Uh, and I know you obviously have still some free agents out there like Matt Carpenter, Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn. And then there's still the whole big question mark when it comes to Arenado.
Yeah, I was gonna say who's holding. Well, I guess it's. I was gonna say who's holding who hostage, but it's Arenado holding the Cardinals hostage.
And I mean he can play the cards. I mean he's making the paycheck. He's fine sitting there where he's at. But he wants to win a World Series, and that was part of the reason he went to St. Louis was to try and team up with Paul Goldschmidt. And at the time, Yadier Molina was still behind the dish, and that team was not necessarily built from scratch to win a World Series, but they were doing that so to speak Cardinal way where they build a team around everything they need, and they can still somehow make it to the postseason and have that big run kind of like they did in 2011 when they did win the World Series. Um, but they just everything just didn't pan out. I mean, I think they felt like real good about signing Dexter Fowler back when the after he won the World Series with the Cubs, and that didn't pan out. Wilson Contreras hasn't panned out for him. Um, and then I mean, even like some of their young guys, like Jordan Walker came up real strong, real hot, and he just has not been able to stay in the league. I know he's dealt with a couple injuries, but he's just not been able to stay in the league, and that's definitely hurting them.
Yeah, and I don't think we can ignore the frequent culture issues, or at least culture issues that have happened in the last year and a half, 2 years with Marmol, and then
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you just from what I hear, right? Because I've never played professional baseball, but like team cultures,
Oh,
it's a big thing. It's a big thing, right?
mm-hmm.
You're with these
Oh yeah.
guys, right? It's literally your family. You see them every day. You're traveling with them. You're you see them every day. You have days off, and sometimes you have a day off on the road, right? You're traveling, so your day off is still with them.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine being with a group of what 40 people, including coaches, and you don't get along with them. That's
It's
miserable. You're not gonna want to go play a 3 hour baseball game every day.
right, and I mean you had the whole thing that came out about Wilson Contreras allegedly being quite toxic in the clubhouse. I mean, so it's just you never really know what's really going on behind the scenes. Like we like to think we do, but in the end of the day, there's so much going on back there that we just take what we find on Twitter, what we find on take what we find on X, or what we find on whatever socials we're looking at on any given day.
Right. And the players are so well, I guess, like media trained that they'll sit
Mm-hmm.
there and talk and never really say anything. I'm the first one always to like listen to these player interviews, and I feel like I always leave the interview really not really knowing anything that I didn't already know like 5 minutes ago.
Right.
So it's very hard to know. It's all on these reporters that have like inside sources because the players will never really. tell you anything until years after. Um, yeah. We go on to the Cubs. Cubs who lost Drew Smiley, but who do they acquire, Robbie?
So yeah, I mean, you brought in obviously the big name here is Kyle Tucker. We all know he's a tank. They brought in Matthew Boyd, Ryan Presley, Eli Morgan, Carson Kelly, Justin Turner, who's going to be a good bench piece. Ryan Bracer, Colin Rea, John Birdie, and then you got another local kid there, and Nicky Lopez out of fresh out of Naperville. So that's always cool to see the local kids come up. I know he came up, played with the White Sox for a bit too. So
I do believe he was optioned down though,
yeah,
but
right.
doesn't DFA. But still, they
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
did lose Cody Bellinger.
Cody Bellinger, and that's a big one. Obviously, we know he went to the Yankees, and then losing Kyle Hendricks. I mean, that kind of more just hurts. I mean, he's not going to be that guy he was back in 2016, 2017. Um, but it just hurts losing him as it's just that last piece from that 2016 team. Mike Tachman, who we got touch base on earlier, we talked about the AL Central, and then Hayden Wisniewski and Isaac Paredes, who we talked about in our AL West coverage.
Right. On to the Pirates. Pirates pretty quiet, right?
Yep. They re-signed Andrew McCutchen. Dude who belongs in Pittsburgh, should stay in Pittsburgh. Um, Probably at this point be Pittsburgh till his career's over. Uh, Tommy Pham, Adam Frazier, just a few guys there, and then as of subtractions, losing out on Aroldis Chapman and Connor Joe and Brian De La Cruz.
Right. Aroldis Chapman. Guy can still throw the pill.
Yeah, but
103.
I've heard a lot of things that he can be one of those toxic clubhouse guys. So he's bounced around quite a bit.
That's true. Yeah, he's definitely one of those guys that it's like that for a little while there was like he was a trade piece, right? You pick him up in the off season, decent contract to flip him at the deadline to a contender, which worked out for him when he won with Texas, right?
Right. I mean, I safely said that dude sold his career after winning the World Series with the Cubs by going back to the Yankees. And, he didn't win the World Series with the Yankees, but he did end up going ahead to win with Texas. So
Right. We go on to the Reds.
the Reds, yep, they re-signed Nick Martinez, then, Brady Singer, Gavin Lux, uh, Austin Hayes, Wade Miley to a minor league deal, and Jose Trevino in the trade with Yankees.
I would say one of the most notable subtractions was Jonathan India in that trade, but they did get Brady Singer back, so I'm not sure how Reds fans feel about that. They probably feel pretty good. They probably feel like it was a good return, decent, just one for one flip.
Yep, I would agree with that. I think I mean, you're going to miss a lot from India there, but I mean, at the end of the day, I think you're kind of getting what you gave there.
Right. I mean,
So,
rookie of the year, right?
mm-hmm.
Rookie of the
Yep.
year. All right, so I think that wraps it up for the key players in, players out. We just finished going over the standings, so now the only thing left to do is our predictions. So sort of like we did it for the AL and NL West. Let's start at the bottom. Let's start with the AL, and we'll go back and forth.
All right.
You want to go first?
Sure, why not? Yeah, unfortunately, sorry, Southsiders. It's just you're going to have another year in the dumps. I mean, you're going to be, I think maybe 52, 53 games. I think you're still going to have over 100 losses, unfortunately.
I mean, it has to be infuriating. Okay, you're
Yeah.
not in a small market.
Mm-mm.
uh, people, I've heard people still try to say it's like, well, the Cubs are the big market team and the White Sox are a small market team. You're in the same town. You're in the same town. Okay, your owner also owns the Bulls. He doesn't.
Yeah. You know
He's
how that
not
goes,
lacking
though.
money. Well, right. But you're not lacking money. Okay, and so the fact that you've just kind of just like they they tried the rebuild. The rebuild failed, right? they had
Mhm.
pretty good guys. I don't know what happened. A couple of our friends, they really blame Tony La Russa. I don't think it's Tony La Russa. Okay.
I mean, I so to kind of build off that there. I mean, I don't think LaRusse is not partially to blame. I mean, he was kind of seemingly brought in as a favor by the Sox owner Jerry Reinsdorf, and that kind of just, I think it kind of shot him in the foot. I just don't think it was. I just don't think it was a good move, and I don't think he was, resonated well with a lot of those young Latin players. And I mean, being this, old guy has been in the league for forever. I just don't think he worked really well with that style of play, that style of flair. I mean, you had a team top to bottom. I mean, you could have developed that team. They had a lot of injuries. Don't get me wrong, but you could develop that team quite into being a division contender that had this talent. I mean, Luis Roberts still, if he can stay healthy, still one of the best guys in the league as an overall ball player.
Right.
Um, but it's just I just don't. There's a lot to it, and I just don't know what to. I don't know what to actually say contributed to their demise.
Yeah.
But
It, but
I think it all boils back to the ownership,
yeah.
unfortunately.
But I feel like now even the last year that they were, I would say, supposed to be good would have been 22. It's 25 now, and they've spent the some of those guys haven't been on the team now for a couple of years. You would have
Hmm.
thought that they would have quick tried to do something to not make them fall all the way back down into the terrible, terrible situation that they're in now.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I like I said, it just boils right back to the ownership. I mean, there's no shortage of Sox fans. I mean, I live in pretty much in White Sox territory. There's no shortage of Sox fans, and like it's just, and nobody's satisfied right now. I mean, you listen to local radio and people calling in, and nobody's happy with what's going on. I mean, and then you have them taking people's, certain shirts away or certain signs away as they sell the team because people are so fed up. It's like, what? Rather than like, listen to people and try and make a difference and make your team, one, more profitable because you'll make more money when the team's successful, and two, make your fans happy who've been lifelong fans. Um, you're just going to basically kick them to the curb and just say, well, I don't care what you have to say because I got your money anyways. Like it's
Yeah.
like just, I mean, you at some point in there, it's just some of these owners just kind of make you sick in that regard. Like, I mean, go back to the whole Oakland thing. Like John Fisher was just terrible for the game of baseball, and it's a disgrace to see what these owners can do and contribute to these clubs to make them um, at least as or see what these owners contribute to the club to make them actually garbage. And it's not fair. It's
Right.
not fair to the fans. It's not fair to the other teams. It's not fair to the players who get stuck on these teams. I mean, it's not fair.
Yeah. I did the Red Line series last year. Cubs game first early in the day, and then we went to the White Sox game. I just carried a little string bag with me. No problem getting it into Wrigley. They checked it. Awesome. Had nothing in there but like sunscreen, bottle of water. Go. Couple hours later, guaranteed rate. Same thing, same bag. Go. They make me throw the bag away. It was a
Oh,
string
really?
bag. Yeah, it was my string bag that were like one of a custom glove that I ordered a couple years ago came in. Did
Was
not
that
expect to have to
after?
throw the.
Was
Say
that
that.
after the situation where the person got accidentally popped in right in left field?
Yeah, it would have been right. It would have been. It was so that I think that happened. Yeah, exactly. So
So I
not
mean, but
I'm not trying to be like a salty like Cubs fan talking bad about the Sox, but like that's just what my experience was when I literally went to two games in one day. Cubs, Sox. I lost my bag. Nice string bag, and had to carry the rest of the time my sunscreen and stuff in my hands basically. Um,
that's just that's weird. I didn't know. You never told me that, so that's kind of weird.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, no surprise. I also have the White Sox in last place. All right, fourth place.
Fourth place, I think it's going to stay the same. I think the Twins are going to stay there. I think they're going to actually be under 500 this year. I don't think it's. I mean, I don't think they're going to be a terrible. I don't think it'll be atrocious. I still think they probably win over 75 games. But I do think that they're almost ready for a rebuild.
You think so? Uh, it's the whole Byron Buxton thing. Byron Buxton. is their superstar guy, but he's just not healthy. Correa
Nope.
can be a superstar guy, and he's also healthy. And every year, every year they're getting older. And now you have Royce Lewis, who is the savior, and he has shown like parts of greatness, and then he's also all of a sudden got hurt. Like,
It's like the whole, same with the Twins here, Miguel Sano. I mean, he was the same way. Like he was, dominant, dominant, dominant. Then he'd get hurt, and then he'd be out for a long extended period of time. Then he'd have, he had his trouble with the law to it at some point. Then I digress, um, but he did miss time as a result of both things just to get everything situated. And it's yeah, it's something that's just been bad luck for the Twins. I mean, they went a long time without winning a playoff game.
yeah,
I mean, they went a long time without winning a playoff game.
yeah,
So,
yeah. I do feel like if those guys are healthy, they can have a nice, a, a well-rounded team. I still do like their bullpen,
mhm.
um, but I would agree with you. I do feel like their time at the top is now over, especially with the next three teams that we're about to talk about. So third place.
We'll make one more note here on the
Oh
Twins.
yeah,
Target Field is one of my favorite ballparks. Been there several times. Great food, great atmosphere, $5 beers. It's a great ballpark to catch a game. Nice brewery and a cidery within walking distance right after the game. It's a neat little place, neat little stadium.
there was a little time there that you were basically the Twins were kind of like your AL team. I mean, I know like you like the Tigers, but like you were going to a lot of Twins games there for a
I
second.
think I think I've been to 5 Twins games. We're going up to Minnesota every year for a while, and when I always make sure when we're going up there, let's center it around the Twins game because it's a good atmosphere for a ball game. I mean, and it always was. I mean, we went there in 21 when the stadium was half locked down, and it was still a good time.
Right.
So, but between the Twins and the Tigers in terms of stadiums, it's tough for me to say which one I like better in the AL Central. But
Yeah.
they're both great parks. The food's better in Minnesota. That's no question. But I digress.
Actually, those AL Central ballparks, the worst one's the White Sox.
That's true. And Kansas City's where they're going to rebuild. I think they're supposed to or planning to rebuild at some point
I
soon.
think that I
Um,
feel like that fell through. I feel like
I think
they
it did too,
I
but
think I
I
think
can't remember
that fell
that.
through. I
But
mean,
as of
what
right now, it's in Kaufman. But I've not been to Kansas City's part. It's the only AL Central stadium I've not been to. So
I mean, it looks great on TV.
it looks beautiful on TV.
It
Definitely
looks
Pitcher's Park though.
it looks great on the show too.
Hmm. All right. Anyways, for my third place team, I guess let's bring that right in there. I think we're going to go with this one's tough because I think these top three teams here, between the Guardians, Royals, and Tigers, I think they're going to really duke it out for the top of this division. Um, I think I'm going to go Guardians actually. So for a second I was thinking Royals, but I think I'm going Guardians, and it's going to be close. That's all I'm going to say.
I feel like there's no right or wrong answer with the order of these next three teams. I think you can make a
Mhm.
decent argument either way. I I do feel like with the star power, at least that Kansas City has, you know, I feel like Cleveland, they always figure it out, but
Mhm.
there's a lot of things that can go wrong running a team the way Cleveland runs a team, right? You're really you're making sure that the guys on your team are getting the most out of every single day. And, eventually that just doesn't work out every year, right?
Mhm.
They, so because of that, I'm going to put the Guardians.
Okay.
Guardians in third. Hopefully we don't have the exact same.
Well, I mean, let's see. If you have Kansas City in second, then we have the exact same thing. I think Kansas City does have that star power aspect. I just think the Tigers did more in the offseason that are going to push them over the top. And I think the Tigers win the division. The Royals end up in second.
Okay. And I had Kansas City winning.
Okay.
I do feel like the Tigers did more, but some of those guys, well, not everybody, but like Flaherty was on the team to begin with. And
Hmm.
and they had a crazy push into the playoffs those last like 2 months. Before that, they were
Right.
like pretty terrible. So they played some crazy baseball down the stretch to make it and tie with Kansas City. So
Mhm.
I feel like if that's not going to happen again, or like the chances of that happening again are low. So I got to give it to Kansas City.
Okay. Right on. Right on.
All right, NL Central, last place.
Last place, for me, it's going to be St. Louis. I mean, the rest of the division made moves. They just didn't. I mean, they do always seem to figure it out, but I just don't think they have the pieces it's going to take because I think this is going to be one of those divisions that's kind of like what we described the other day, talking about the AL West. I mean, it's one of those divisions that there's no real great superstar filled team. I think the Cubs are the only thing that really kind of fits, could even come close to fitting that category. But I feel like it's going to be a lot of beating up on each other, and I just think that the Cardinals are going to be at the bottom. I think they lose. I don't know if they lose 100 games. I don't think I'd go with that extravagant. I think I'd probably go somewhere around 90, 90 to like 95 games.
Hmm. I agree with you, and let's just take a second real quick. How about the ballparks in the NL Central? Ballparks in the NL
Yeah,
Central.
yeah. I've been to all. I mean, they all. I mean, Wrigley's the best. Just gonna put that out there.
But PNC,
But
PNC, right?
PNC, PNC is a. It's so I was not a big fan of the like. So let me circle back. The stadium's beautiful. The view is beautiful. It's a great park to catch a game. The food options in the stadium were kind of like mid. Nothing really stuck out. It's like, hey, this is really delicious. This is really good. Um, but they have kind of a setup similar to like you see at Wrigley, where you have all your bars and restaurants all around the stadium. So you have your choices to eat and drink before the game. Just a plethora of options. And I mean, you're so close to, the Pittsburgh Steelers football stadium. You're close to a casino. You're not. I mean, you're walking distance from a casino. Um, it's a great ballpark, great area, great atmosphere. Hoping they can start to fill seats and get that place popping again. Because when you've seen that place rock in October, that Pittsburgh can rock in October.
Yeah. But yeah, so I would agree. St. Louis. Uh, I feel like I saw something that they came out saying that they 2026 or 7 is when they are going to try to compete, which for St. Louis fans in general, that must infuriate them,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I'm not saying this division is as wide open as it has been in the past couple of years. Now that some of these teams are kind of starting to get into their window, but it doesn't take much. You guys are the Cardinals. It's the Cardinal way to
Mm-hmm.
hear your team say, "Hey, we're gonna take a couple years." That's yeah. You never want to hear that.
How about the stadium in St. Louis? Are you a fan of it? Is there one place you like? You want to go back catch another game to?
Oh yeah, I wouldn't mind going back.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. I would agree with that.
yeah, a couple years ago, we went to go see Cubs Cardinals in St. Louis. We were what, third base side, third
We were
base side up, first base side,
uh, first base side up a little bit, but
and it was
great
a
view.
good
Yeah,
yeah, it was a good view. It's not really a skyline, but it's
mm-mm. You
it's
see the
the
arch and all that, and
yeah, it's the Hilton that you can
mhm.
see. Um, yeah, no, it was
It's the only
fun.
stadium I've ever almost gotten into a fight into, and it happened twice.
But it wasn't anything. It was not anything he did.
No,
It was
it
like
was the guy who fed his mom multiple beers, and I use "fed" as a quote because he fed her, as he put it, multiple beers. So,
yeah,
and then there was then you remember at the ballpark village, the guy who took a tumble, fell, smacked his head on the
yeah.
concrete.
Beside all that stuff that happened, beside that happening, that was like a cool area.
It
You
was,
finish the
it
game
was.
and then you're like basically right outside the stadium, hanging out with a bunch of people that were just at the game,
Mhm.
right?
It's a neat. The ballpark village that they got is neat. And I think you see other stadiums doing similar things now. And but I think that St. Louis hasn't done well, so I give them definitely a lot of props for that.
for sure. Fourth place.
Fourth place, I think I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. Um, I just don't think Skeens can do it all. So,
Yeah, I would agree. I just saw that he was named opening day starter, and of course that is a great honor. But who else are you going to pick?
yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, he, and it's not that's not really anything towards Skeens because he's definitely like Cy Young. He might win the Cy Young, probably will
Mhm.
win the Cy Young. But like that Pittsburgh organization like hasn't done. I know it's only year two, but like they didn't really try to build around. Just like okay, Skeens every 5 days.
And,
That's how we're
well,
gonna win.
here's the thing. Now, I guess the question is, Skeens is an incredible talent, but we will see what happens now that the league has seen him.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that's year two for a pitcher is usually one of the most key years because if they get figured out, they get figured out. They're no longer nearly the player they were. So, um, Pittsburgh will be Pittsburgh will be another year down for them, which is unfortunate. That's another team that's just running to the ground by poor management. So,
yeah, it's sad. So third place.
third place, going to go Cincinnati. I think they're going to be better this year. I think they're going to be above 500, but I just don't know if they'll have what it takes to get up there.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's gonna Terry Francona will have some sort of effect, positive effect,
I agree.
definitely,
Hmm.
definitely a positive effect. But it's one of those teams like until you start seeing them do it, they have the Ellie Dela Cruz, right? And now they've shored up a little bit more of the rotation with Brady Singer. But like you got to watch them put it together at least for a year, and then because a couple years ago they were decently competitive, and then I feel like they took a step back again.
Hmm.
Um, but I do feel like they could definitely be more competitive than Pittsburgh and definitely be more competitive than St. Louis.
Yep,
Right.
I agree. And then for second place, I think I, I think it's going to be Milwaukee, but I don't think they're going to go down quietly. Um, I think they're going to put up a fight as they always do. Those Cubs Brewers games up at Wrigley North or in Wrigley are quite electric. So it's going to be tough. But I do think the Cubs will take the division. I think they'll win 93, 94 games and take that division.
Uh, I do agree with you, and the exact same reasoning that I just picked the Cincinnati to be third is that even though it's my team, I haven't seen them do it, and at this point, they haven't won a playoff game since 2017, and I know they can do it this year, especially with the seeming steps back that Milwaukee has taken. But
Hmm.
I don't know. Until I see, I'd rather say that they're gonna win second. They're gonna get second place and be wrong, and have them win first place. Does that make sense? I do
Yeah,
want them to
but
win first place, and I do feel like they can do it. But until I see it happen, I'm gonna put Chicago at second and Milwaukee at first.
okay, right on. You think it's going to be close, though? You think they're going to duke it out until the end?
I feel like they will duke it out at the end, and the entire time we're gonna be saying, "What is going on? We have the better team," as in the Cubs,
Yep, I agree with that.
which has
And I
happened
mean,
multiple times.
I think the Cubs. I mean, the thing is, the last year, if the Cubs take away their May, how bad their May was, and even their June,
June,
they're. I mean, hell, they were a playoff team easy,
yeah, uh,
but they had a real bad downslide
right, and
after a great April.
I guess I didn't even touch on really the Cubs as a team. Dansby Swanson surgery, Nico Horner surgery. Dansby Swanson was playing with like his obliques messed up,
Hmm.
which is crazy to be a shortstop, messed up obliques, and of course you're gonna have no pop if your obliques aren't right. Nico
Right.
Horner had a bunch of issues. He at one point he had that thing with his arm and had like a broken finger. They asked him during in the beginning of spring training, "Hey, how much overlap was there?" He didn't answer how much overlap there was, but he did confirm that there was overlap. He like didn't really turn double plays last year, and it literally is because he couldn't throw the ball.
Hmm.
Of course, that's going to affect your offense. And then you bring in a guy like Kyle Tucker that, hopefully when the offense does fall back on a lull, he can have even just a regular Kyle Tucker month, a
Hmm.
800 OPS month, which for him is like an average month, uh, that could still carry the team right to a couple more wins than they would otherwise. So I
Right.
do see Chicago being able to win the division, but it's just Milwaukee has that. It's always Milwaukee, it's Cleveland, and it's the Rays. It's those three
Hmm. Right.
teams that it doesn't make sense, and they just outplay everybody. I don't understand.
Right.
Anything else to add?
I think that's it for me.
Perfect. So that concludes our AL and NL Central previews. We went over the 2024 standings, talked about some key pieces in and out, and then finished up with our standings predictions. Thank you, Robert. Remember, guys, if you enjoy this content, make sure to like, subscribe. We'll be back later with our NL and AL East to finish off the series. Hopefully before the Japan series. If not, we wanted to make sure that the NL and AL, the Central and West divisions were taken care of right before the Cubs and Dodgers played. That was our main priority. So now we might take a couple more days for the AL and NL East. All right. Thank you so much.
Yep. Later.